Ramat had a high libido, a passion that Malik struggled to match. There were moments when she craved the thrill of intimacy, an unquenchable fire within her that he seemed unable to ignite. She often felt frustrated, yearning for that connection, while Malik remained reserved, always focused on the serious aspects of life. Once upon a time, there lived a man named Iliya. He and his wife had been married for 5 years, but they had no child. They tried everything they could think of, visiting doctors, meeting traditional healers, and praying day and night. But no matter what they did, there was still no baby. Iliya's wife often cried, especially at night when the house was quiet. She would sit on their bed, tears rolling down her cheeks, and whisper, "Why can't I have a child like other women?" Iliya would hold her gently, wiping her tears away. He always tried to cheer her up, saying, "Don't worry, my dear. One day, when the time is right, we will have our own child. Just have faith." One sunny morning, a close family friend invited them to a naming ceremony for their new baby. It was their third child. When Iliya shared the news with his wife, she shook her head and said, "I can't go there. How can I? They are celebrating their third child and we don't have even one. It's just too painful." Iliya felt sad seeing his wife so heartbroken, but he didn't give up. He took her hands and spoke softly. "My love, I understand how you feel, but we shouldn't lose hope. Let's go and share in their happiness, and soon others will gather to celebrate our own child's naming too. Just believe me, please." It took a lot of pleading, and finally, after wiping her tears, Mrs. Iliya nodded slowly. "All right, I will go, but only because you believe so strongly that our time will come." Iliya hugged her, feeling relieved that she had agreed, hoping that this small step would bring a little light into their lives. After some time had passed and still no baby had come, Iliya and his wife decided to take a bold step. They talked for days, weighing the decision carefully, and finally they agreed to adopt a child. It wasn't an easy choice, but they knew their hearts were full of love to give. Soon, they brought home a sweet little baby girl, just 2 years old. They named her Maya. From that moment, their lives changed forever. Maya brought laughter into their home. Iliya's wife would smile again, her heart light as she played with Maya. They treated her like the most precious thing in the world, and their once quiet home was now filled with joy and warmth. 2 years passed, and Maya was growing into a happy, energetic child. Everything seemed perfect, but then something unexpected happened. Iliya's wife started feeling strange, tired, a little dizzy, and unusually weak. At first, she thought it was from all the running around with Maya, but soon she couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. One morning, as she was ready, a sudden wave of nausea hit her. Her heart raced. Could it be what she thought? When Iliya got home, she stood in front of him, tears brimming in her eyes. "Iliya, I think I think I might be pregnant," she said, her voice trembling. Iliya blinked, not quite believing it. They had given up hope on this dream long ago. Rushing to the doctor, they held their breaths, waiting. And when the doctor smiled and confirmed the pregnancy, Iliya and his wife were so happy. "After all these years, we are going to have our own baby," Iliya said. They couldn't believe it. A miracle was happening. Months flew by in a whirlwind of excitement and preparation. They made sure everything was perfect for the baby's arrival. Maya, now 4, would gently pat her mother's growing belly and say, "Baby sister, come out and play with me." It was as if she already knew how much love was waiting for the new baby. Finally, after 9 long months, the day they had been waiting for arrived. Iliya paced nervously around the hospital, his heart pounding as his wife was inside giving birth. It felt like hours, and with every passing minute, he grew more anxious. Then, suddenly, he heard the sound he had been waiting for, a baby's cry. They loved their new baby and named her Ramat. She was everything they had prayed for, and they couldn't stop doting on her. From the moment she was born, Ramat became the light of Iliya and his wife's life. They would hold her close, sing to her, buy her the best clothes and toys. Ramat was their pride and joy. But as Ramat grew, something changed in their home. Maya, who had once been the center of their world, now felt like she was in the background. Yes, they still took care of her, made sure she had food, clothes, and a place to stay. But the warmth, the laughter, the love, they gave all that to Ramat. Maya would watch from the corner of her room as her parents hugged and kissed Ramat, spoiling her with gifts and attention. She would sit quietly, trying to understand why things had changed. One evening, Maya couldn't take it anymore. She walked up to her mother, her eyes filled with sadness, and whispered, "Mommy, don't you love me anymore?" Her mother didn't even look at her. "I am not your mommy," she said coldly. "Ramat is my only daughter. You should be grateful we are still taking care of you." Maya's heart broke at that moment. She didn't understand why things had turned out this way. Why didn't they love her like before? She wanted to cry, but she held it inside, not wanting to upset anyone. From that day on, Maya learned to stay quiet, to keep her feelings hidden. As years passed, things only got worse. Ramat was pampered beyond belief. Her parents gave her everything she wanted: fancy clothes, the latest gadgets, and even her own car when she was old enough. If she cried for something, they rushed to get it for her, spoiling her silly. But Maya, now almost invisible in their eyes, was left to manage on her own. She got what she needed, but never the extra love or care she had once known. The years flew by, and soon both girls graduated from the university. Ramat, as always, celebrated in style with her parents throwing a huge party for her. Maya, standing off to the side, watched the celebration, feeling like an outsider in the only home she had ever known. After graduating from the university, Rama's parents wasted no time in arranging what they believed to be the perfect match for their beloved daughter. They introduced her to Malik, the son of a wealthy billionaire. Malik was every woman's dream: tall, handsome, and extremely rich. He had everything anyone could ever want. To Iliya and his wife, this was the golden opportunity for their daughter. They saw it as the perfect future for Ramat, ensuring she would never lack anything in life. Ramat, however, felt differently. Yes, Malik was good looking, and yes, his wealth was undeniable. But to her, something was missing. He was too quiet, too serious, too boring. She had always dreamed of excitement, adventure, and someone who made her heart race. Malik wasn't that man. He was the type who preferred quiet dinners over wild parties, thoughtful conversations over flashy dates, and that didn't sit well with Ramat. Also, Ramat had a high libido, a passion that Malik struggled to match. There were moments when she craved the thrill of intimacy, an unquenchable fire within her that he seemed unable to ignite. She often felt frustrated, yearning for that connection, while Malik remained reserved, always focused on serious aspects of life. But despite all this, Ramat stayed with him because Malik showered her with expensive gifts, jewelry, designer clothes, luxury trips, and anything her heart desired. Every week, a new surprise arrived at her doorstep, and she loved the attention, the lifestyle, and the comforts that came with the wealth. Deep inside though, Ramat knew she didn't love him. She didn't feel anything for Malik except for the luxuries he provided. She laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny, smiled when he talked about boring business deals, and pretended to be the perfect girlfriend. But whenever she was alone, her mind wandered to what life would be like with someone more thrilling, someone who could ignite the fire she craved. Malik was head over heels in love with Ramat. From the moment he laid eyes on her, he knew she was the one. So immediately he got back from his trip, where he had spent 5 months away from Ramat, he proposed. The wedding date was set and preparations moved quickly. Malik spared no expense. It was to be the grandest wedding the city had ever seen. Thousands of guests, luxurious decorations, and a reception that would make headline. Everyone was excited, especially Rama's parents, who couldn't believe their daughter was about to marry into one of the wealthiest families in the country. This was a dream come true for them. The wedding had finally arrived. Guests filled the grand hall dressed in their finest clothes, eagerly waiting for the ceremony to begin. Malik stood at the altar, nervous but excited, his heart racing as he thought about seeing Ramat walk down the aisle in her beautiful gown. Everything seemed perfect. Behind the scenes, Ramat's parents were in panic. They had gone to check on her only to find out that she was gone, disappeared without a trace. Her dress was lying on the bed untouched and her phone was switched off. How could she do this? We can't let this happen. Not today. They couldn't afford the scandal of Ramat leaving Malik at the altar, the embarrassment, the shame. It would destroy everything they had built. In desperation, Ramat's mother turned to Maya, who had been quietly watching from the sidelines. "Maya," she said in a voice that was both pleading and commanding, "you have to save us. You need to take Ramat's place." Maya's eyes widened in shock. "But how? I am not Ramat. I can't marry Malik." "You have to," her father insisted. "We can't let this wedding fall apart. The shame would ruin us. No one has to know. You will wear the dress. The veil will hide your face and will explain everything later. Please, Maya, do this for the family." Torn between loyalty and fear, Maya hesitated, but when she saw the desperation in her parents' eyes, she reluctantly agreed. They quickly helped her into Ramat's wedding gown. Her heart pounded as they fixed the veil over her face, hiding her identity. Meanwhile, Malik was growing anxious. He loved Ramat deeply, and the thought of something being wrong made his chest tighten. Then Ramat's parents pulled him aside. His heart sank when he saw their troubled faces. "There's something we need to tell you," Ramat's father said quietly. Ramat had a medical emergency. She had to leave the country urgently, and she didn't want to tell you because she didn't want to break your heart. Malik's world crumbled in an instant. Why didn't she tell me? I would have understood. I love her. I would have stood by her no matter what. "I know, son, I know," Ramat's father said, patting him on the shoulder. "But we can't let the wedding fall apart. You know how the media is, how people talk. We have thought of a solution. You will marry Maya instead." Malik's mind was spinning. How could this be happening? He didn't love Maya. He had always seen her as quiet, forgotten one, always in the background. But his eyes kept drifting to the crowd, the guests, the cameras, all waiting for a wedding. The pressure was overwhelming. With a heavy heart, he realized he had no choice. He couldn't afford the humiliation of being left at the altar, even though every part of him screamed that he loved Ramat. He nodded slowly. On Maya's side, the weight of the situation pressed heavily on her. She had never wanted any of this. How could her parents do this to her? She felt completely used. They didn't care about her feeling, not even for a moment. All they cared about was avoiding embarrassment. No one had even explained the real reason why Ramat disappeared. Maya was left in the dark, forced into a marriage she never asked for, all because her sister was nowhere to be found. As the wedding ceremony began, Maya's heart ached. She stood beside Malik in Ramat's gown, but inside she was full of sadness and confusion. Beside her, Malik looked just as miserable. He barely looked at her, his face full of anger and disappointment. Neither of them smiled as the vows were exchanged. The whole room buzzed with joy, guests cheering and congratulating the new couple. Completely unaware of the storm brewing between them, Maya wanted to scream, to tell them all this wasn't real, but she stayed silent. After the ceremony, Maya was taken to Malik's house, her new home. The house was grand, beautifully decorated, but to Maya, it felt cold and empty. The crowd of guests slowly disappeared, leaving just the two of them, Maya and Malik, in the grand living room. The silence was thick and heavy. After what felt like eternity, he finally turned to her, his face hard and cold. "Listen and listen good," he said, his voice sharp. "You are only my wife on paper. I don't love you, and I never will." Maya's heart sank as his words pierced through her. She had known this marriage wasn't real, but hearing it so bluntly felt like a slap in the face. "We will just coexist," Malik continued, his eyes narrowing. "Like flatmates. Don't expect anything from me. No love, no affection, nothing. I am doing this to save face for both our families." Maya's throat tightened as she fought back tears. She had been pushed into a life she didn't choose, and now the man she was supposed to call her husband was telling her she meant nothing to him. She felt more alone than ever. For 2 long years, Maya and Malik lived like strangers under the same roof. They slept in separate rooms, never talked like real couples, and there was no sign of affection between them. At the dining table, they would silently eat whatever the maid cooked, barely looking at each other. Malik would finish his meal, grab his briefcase, and head off to work, leaving Maya behind in the big empty house. Maya's life felt like a cage. She was forbidden from working or even finding something to occupy her time. Malik had made it clear from the beginning: "You will be a full housewife, nothing more, nothing less." The loneliness was unbearable. Day after day, Maya wandered through the grand house. She had no friends, no one to talk to, and the only people she saw were the maids and gardeners. Life felt so unfair, trapped in a loveless marriage, all because of her parents' desperation to save face. Each night, she would lie awake in her room, staring at the ceiling, wondering why her life had turned out this way. Maya had been battling with her emotions for months, trying to understand the strange feelings that had slowly crept into her heart. Despite the cold, distant marriage, she had started to fall for Malik. She knew it was foolish. He had made it clear from the beginning that he would never love her, but something in her heart refused to listen. She found herself thinking about him more and more, wondering if there was a way to break through the walls he had built around himself. Determined to win his heart, Maya started making little efforts to get Malik to notice her. She would wake up early to cook his favorite meal, setting the table beautifully, hoping he would finally appreciate the care she had put into it. She even began dressing differently, wearing clothes that complemented her figure, hoping he might glance her way just once with something other than indifference. But it was all in vain. Malik remained distant, treating her with the same coldness as always. He barely noticed the meals she prepared, and when he did, all he gave was a brief note of thanks before leaving for work. Maya's heart ached, but she refused to give up. She had learned long ago that persistence was key. But one morning, everything changed. It was just another ordinary day. Malik had gone to work and Maya was sitting alone in the living room when she heard the door opened. She looked up, expecting it to be one of the maids, but her heart stopped when she saw who stood in the doorway. It was Ramat, her sister, who had disappeared without a trace on the day of her wedding, was suddenly back. Ramat walked into the house like she had never left, her head held high, a confident smirk on her face. Ramat is back, and her sudden return is about to shake everything to its core. Why did she disappear on her wedding day? What is her real mission now that she's back? And the shocking reason she left in the first place will leave you speechless. But that is not all. Her presence is about to spark chaos, heartbreak, and a storm of secrets. Stay tuned for the next part as we uncover Rama's hidden agenda and the trouble she's set to unleash. You don't want to miss the next part. It's going to be explosive. If you have enjoyed our story, please subscribe, like, share, and click on the notification bell. Thank you.